Co-leader of Te Pāti Maori, Debbie Ngawera Packer, joins us. Good evening to you, Debbie. Thanks for giving us some time.
Kia ora, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I read in the news in the last 24 hours that Select Committee have received, and I believe they have said have accepted the petition to change the name of New Zealand to Aotearoa. I think I've wanted to talk about this a couple of times when it's come up in the news, so thank you for giving us some time today to have a bit of a chat about it. I guess I want to kind of take a step backwards and ask about it. I'm looking at, I think, Parliamentary Services page as I speak to you, and the petition request was, quote, that the House of Representatives change the country's official name to Aotearoa and begin a process to identify and officially restore the Te Reo Maori names for all towns, cities and places by 2026. And note that 70,047 people have signed petitions to that effect. So that's all accurately now what we're discussing?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot about that other 47. I need to amend my socials because I said 70,000. So
those 47 don't
matter.
Time,
by the way, too. So yeah.
I guess the first question was, I believe you need 200,000 signatures to force a referendum. Did you ever think about going down that path and kind of trying to get to that mark and then force a public referendum?
I guess the issue that we have often as tangata whenua, who are sadly also a minority in their own country, is that we often will come up against the majority who are not trying to get their language and their culture reinvigorated or even their narrative remembered. So it becomes, again, really hard because the very process that took our language and our names out is the process that we appeal to in referendum. So it doesn't work for us. And I think that's why we decided to be really bold and put it out there and to sort of see will it get air, will it get flight?
I can see that there must be something quite disheartening about having to rely on allies to a cause to get that cause through rather than the people who want to do it themselves. Because what you're saying is true. If you probably need to rely on people outside maybe the group that this would most impact to then help you get it over the line. So I get it. I can completely see why you do that.
And it's often a younger generation too. So, to be able to put in corrective measures over things that would, effectively say the culture that we've applied and been living to as a nation for generations has been wrong, is a tough call. Where a younger generation, there's a lot more savviness about, how we all got here, the impacts of colonization on Indigenous peoples throughout the world. So it's not such a personal hit for the next generations. They're not as tied to, I guess, that type of regime or mentality. It's not like you're losing something. So these are a real crossroads, I think, as a nation that comes with this type of discussion as well. So we've had feedback. I got one this morning. It's just like, why do we have to keep having, and they actually spelt it, your Maori, M-A-A-R-I, move on. It's, it's not something that's going to help us, grow the economy or get kids jobs. And thinking, well, actually, that's why we lost it in the first place. And that's actually not what we're out to do. We're actually just trying to rebalance our nationhood, our identity as a nation as well.
And look, the stupid part about that argument back that's been thrown at you is a lot of people are saying to Maori, but no matter what the group were, they're saying to the group that's been wronged, it's time for you to move on. Whereas the position is always actually it's the wronged people that kind of go, okay, we're okay now to move on. Whereas if you flip that any other way to those people, if they had been wronged, and then you were to say to them, well, because you've been wrong, we're going to move on. It doesn't work that way. So for people to say that, they're either not thinking or they're choosing ignorance.
That's right. And I think also it's not about enforcing a deficit mentality. I think the reason why we tied it up with actually bringing other names to life in the regions, using perhaps the traditional names or cultural names, is because often those were named after sites of significance or tied into history that was, was about the shaping of those communities physically and spiritually. And I think there's such a lot to be gained in that as well. So we saw the curriculum push, and Te Ururoa Flavor was a large part of getting our own history as Indigenous peoples into our education system. So that was the aspect about it as well, is that, and we put a date. So I think some of the some of the anti is like, oh, we don't want to do that now. Well, actually, we put a date to transition to, and that's up for discussion. But we put a pole in the ground to sort of say, well, let's move there. And you'll see me do that a lot. You know, I'll say this, but let's move from dislodging our the monarchy as the head of state. Let's move into having this, and none of it is like now. It's like, let's just move as a nation and have that wider discussion and know these aspirations from us as their tangata whenua to go there. So I keep saying this because I see it every day. It's not a matter of if, it will be a matter of when. And it's a real privilege to be able to front and champion that type of change.
Because I mean, when you say that's a matter of when, I do think about sort of natural attrition. I was talking just the other day to someone about Mount Egmont, and like no one calls it Mount Egmont anymore. We all call it Mount Taranaki.
One or two.
You say, okay,
I live under the Maunga. Yeah, I live under Mount Taranaki, and but you're right. And I remember the heat in the debate, even within our own whānau and communities. There was just such heat because there was a sense. And I kept trying to understand it, and I often like to place myself in another person's shoes. Yep. And it wasn't because they actually hated Taranaki. They actually hated that it implied that they'd been raised or were ill-informed or uneducated or disconnected. And how do you say that to people who went to war for our community, who stood in council positions, the whole lot of civic, community voluntary work? And it is. Like, I so get it, but the other side of it is to reset and rebalance isn't meant to make anyone feel bereft. But it is so personal because I actually take it as, well, I've not been educated. No, I have been. I've fought for this country. And so there was huge heat. The Daily News was really provocative at first and then sort of slowly came around. And you're right. I think in the last 10 years more so, I've never seen Mount Egmont 1 or 2, but prior to that, I think it was you'd see it all the time. But it's never been debated now. It happened.
Yeah, but that's the thing that I'm now wondering out loud. The thing I'm wondering out loud is the difference between legislative change versus natural attrition and kind of societal shift. I mean, most of us say Aotearoa New Zealand now. I mean, I refer to Dunedin as Ōtepoti half the time, and half the time it's Dunedin. And it seems to be a natural transition. Every time the Prime Minister seems to speak, she says Aotearoa New Zealand. And I'm interested in and it's not I'm not asking this, in other words, saying that it shouldn't be legislatively changed. But I'm wondering about the thought process to drive down this path of legislatively changing things, when it seems to me also that there is this natural progression towards incorporating Māori within everyday language, and maybe finding some kind of, I was going to say pidgin English, maybe it's pidgin Māori, maybe it's pidgin Kiwi or something that uses both languages in a way that are interchangeable at times. So what was the thought process behind the need to drive this to select committee to actually look for a ruling, shall we say, rather than follow the path that society seems to be going down already?
Yeah, I think first of all, it was done off the anniversary of Te Reo Māori and the official realisation of Te Reo Māori and the petition. So it's almost over a year old in our thinking and the way we moved. It was a natural extension of the fact, like, where have we come in the times now that we've been able to, I think it was 1972, and get a petition out and have everything. Are we still committed? Is our reo still thriving? Are our kids growing up familiar and strong? And the reality is that we hadn't done enough, and we needed to continue to push and spearhead off the work that had been done with a lot of our forefathers, Hana Jackson, Hana Te Himara, a lot of those that we just recently celebrated. And I think Tamatoa's mahi, Te Pumo Te Reo. And what we could see is that actually we need to do more. And while we've got this sphere of influence with us, small too, but loud, it seemed the right time and the right place. And I guess the other side of it is that we couldn't see that there was going to be a real drive in this space. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of bouncing around about our reo and partnerships and te tiriti, and the house that makes the laws of the land needs to show its commitment. And so that was the other sphere as well. So it was a natural extension of work that had been done. Are we there yet? No. Can we do more? Yes. Is the sphere and the platform of influence that we see coming out of the House of Parliament strong enough? Is it certain enough? No. So that's sort of why we went through this, I guess, means of wānanga. And again, we tested it because we kept thinking, well, perhaps it's important for us, but is it important enough? And I can't remember the hours, sorry, but we got 70,047 signatures in overwhelmingly record time. And I keep remembering, like, we got 50,000 signatures in like 50 hours, maybe just shy of 50 hours, and we were stunned. And again, just looking at some of those who made contact with us, they weren't all tangata whenua. There were a lot of tangata tiriti. They weren't all educationalists. There were a lot of young ones. It was just awesome. And so it was real humbling to be able to bounce an idea, wānanga, on it and just keep growing with it. And there's a whole process. Like, it may not come up until next year. Gosh, we're still waiting for our members' bills which keep moving. And there's still a whole discussion and debate around it all. But yeah, I think it does. It did get the momentum that sort of validated our wānanga.
A point of clarity, Mr. Speaker. The only thing I'm unclear on that I'd like to understand is this is the official petition being presented to Parliament. Is the petition calling to make the official name Aotearoa only, or is it calling to add it to New Zealand? So, like, how we have 3 official languages of New Zealand. There's English, there's Maori, and there's New Zealand Sign Language. Is the petition calling to have Aotearoa be the only official name, or to be made an official name and it will sit alongside New Zealand?
To be honest, our wānanga was to have it as the official name, which is what we did similarly with Maunga Taranaki as well. But again, even that's been up for discussion. And even inside of that, if you have a look at it, we talked about having our own names. There are hapu iwi who want to bring to life their names, but this was the start of that. So it wasn't we were being bold, but it wasn't an either or. It was like, we see this is the starting of that and that, and that, as you said, utiputi. And then it will actually help bring others. Well, we don't affiliate with Aotearoa and mō mātou kei o Tautahi. For us in Christchurch, we have this, and that's cool. But it was actually to start something that we at least agree on, but not to replace mana whenua, kōrero narrative and words. So, yeah, I think that was it. And that's why we gave a date that wasn't like next month. It was a wider, exciting wānanga and discussion that we have as a nation. It's been really awesome.
I'm smiling because you just said the line that we can find something to agree on, and I'm just thinking of this current climate. Good fucking luck with that. Finding something to agree on. there'll be maybe something to agree on for most people, but there'll always be those outsiders as well.
Oh yeah, I think the thing is, though, it's really important, though, in everything that we go through in our history, that we can find moments of time when we put this to the forefront and we discuss it and we decided now. And I think that's sort of what it is. These are some really interesting cultural dynamics, which almost get defined as race dynamics coming out of the House at the moment. So I think it's timely.
I wonder, and this is not meant to minimize the drive to make Aotearoa the official name, but I wonder if it feels a little bit maybe like, and I'm not comparing you guys, and I'm not saying this is disingenuous, but the Greens have this thing at the moment where they want quality, affordable housing as a human right. And when I talk to the Greens about it, they're like, well, that's the aspirational goal. Like, how can we get there? How long will it take to get there? What part of it can we get there? Is the reality of this that, within a year, 18 months, 2 years, the official name of New Zealand will be Aotearoa New Zealand? Like, is the outcome for this likely to be that it will incorporate Aotearoa as its own official name, as also a part of the anglicized English version of the name as well? And that's really the likely outcome to come from this?
Look, I think I think it will become Aotearoa, because everyone's starting to learn that actually New Zealand, other than wearing the name for a long, long time, has no significance for us. It's not connected to anything for us. It's not even from this end of the world, so it's not Pacific. So I actually think that we will go to look for things, as we've been through what we've been through as a nation in this world of huge uncertainty. We'll go for what gives us certainty, which is identity. And so I think it will happen, because we're already at Aotearoa, New Zealand. That's status quo. And so we're pushing that actually, and it's not just about getting into the Commonwealth Games and Olympic as the first ones in the queue, as going around, because that was another. I've been seeing some really cool. Sorry, but sorry, I might have just cut out then. But I think we're going for Aotearoa, because we need to push for change, not for status quo.
It is a very good point, though, about the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games, because all too often you have to wait halfway through all those other teams first of all. So I think that's a great selling point. I love that idea.
Yeah. Jumped on that one as fast as we saw it.
So where to from here then? Because it's not going to a public referendum necessarily, which is often a path that it would take, although, as we know in New Zealand, those are non-binding. Does that therefore mean that Select Committee will go through the process and then Parliament will actually vote on whether this is the case or not? Because that's the normal process. Select Committee, citizens can put their submissions in, but then actually that means ultimately this will be decided in the House by the politicians.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I need to, and even we were excited until our team came back and said, "Whoa, what are we in, Debbie? Whoa," and it's so like, oh, what? And so Select Committee will decide. So first of all, it depends on what happens in the Select Committee. Right. And we can't be certain that they will even refer it to the House. And so we haven't really, beyond that stage, and again, that may not come up until early next year, until after the summer break. But that's the process, that it goes to the Select Committee. They then get to discuss, and no doubt debate, whether they refer it to the House for Parliament to debate. But that's... And that can take months and months. And I guess we're also really mindful there's a big occasion next year, the elections. So, it is up to the politicians to see where their intents are. We're really authentic about wanting to make this change and push for this change, but it'll sit in the Select Committee, which nobody's on. So
if this goes through Select Committee and if it then gets passed on to the House, without question, this will be an election issue for next year, because political parties will use it as a narrative one way or the other. You agree with that?
Yeah, sadly, I think culture has become a real, particularly tangata whenua culture, and the aspects of Māori wanting to advance and rebalance has become quite a kitball politically. And I guess the sadness about that is that the real discussion should be how we grow and advance as a united, very intentional partnered nation. And I guess we've already seen it. We've seen it in the House. This Act have really claimed the word co-governance, which is really cool. We prefer the word partnership.
Yeah.
And I think, it's the stage is already afire with that type of rhetoric. But beside it all, and we have seen it, we've seen it in the types of decisions we saw made in local government. There have been requests for young change, young Māori change, lots of Māori in roles of kawanatanga that we've never seen before. And I do think there's a large appetite for correcting what was wrong, but doing it with dignity.
Hey, Debbie, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for coming on board to explain outboard as to what's going on from here. Believe it or not, next week is November. How crazy that feels. Busy in the house in the last couple of months of the year, or are you looking forward to an end of the year wrap up? What about you?
Yeah, we've got with next week's recess, 3-week block recess, then a 2-week block, and then we're out. And we're really looking forward to some good quality time with our whānau, because next year's going to be exciting as hell.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to. I think we're one of the very few parties that have consistently polled. We're still within the margin of error of being an important player or not. But the reality is that we love getting out and socialising and being able to pump up our policies and seeing the reaction of everyone. So it's going to be an awesome fun year next year for us. I know about some others, but yeah.
If we don't talk to you again this year, we look forward to seeing you in Aotearoa next year with, I'm sure, the road trips you guys will be doing. You know it. Thank you. And look after yourself too if we don't see you before summer break. Definitely. Debbie Ngawera Packer, co-leader of the Maori Party, Te Pāti Māori. Thanks for joining us today, mate. That was awesome. Hei kuna.